Good morning, Adventure Fishing Nation. This morning we're going to continue with part 2 of our discussion on how to find that obscure fishing lake in northern Minnesota. I recorded this back to back with the first episode, and I edited it to include into another episode because it was getting a little long. I hope you find it interesting. And the second portion of the video will be fishing from Rainy River. Now, last year we did some fishing from Rainy River, and it was a rather unique year because the waters were low. There was less snow last winter, and it was also warmed up relatively early. And so that allowed us to start fishing, I believe it was the third week in March. You know, that's only a month away. It's pretty amazing. And so just as a bit of a tease towards what's going to happen this spring, I'm hoping to do some more recording up there on the Rainy River, because that's an adventure as well. Fishing from shore and then later fishing from the river itself. There's some dandy walleyes and northerns to be caught right on that river, and it's a once a year special occasion. And all the fish, all the walleyes have to be returned. The northerns, of course, can be kept. But all the walleyes have to be returned back to the river. But still, I mean, we caught just a boatload of dandy walleyes last year, and I want to share those videos with you. So without further ado, here is the second part of how to find that secret lake. We're going to go to a lake that I've been looking at. That's up in the Isabella area, north of Silver Bay. And it's very close to Dumbell Lake. Now, Dumbell Lake in itself is quite a lake. Maybe when I get beyond the years of doing adventure fishing, Dumbell Lake may be my go-to lake. But right now, I'm looking at some other things, obviously. There's a lake just to the west of Dumbell Lake called Delay Lake, D-E-L-A-Y. Now, on the recreational compass, the DNR website, I'm on the map now. If you recall, I brought this map up. What you can do is go to the lake and just simply tap on the name of the lake. Okay, I just had a glitch with our cameras. It's okay. All right, so like I was saying, Delay Lake, you click on it. There's Delay Lake. You click on the blue portion. It brings up some information about Delay Lake. First thing we're going to look at, it's 101 acres. Its shore length is nearly 3 miles. Maximum depth is 18 feet. Now, with 18 feet of maximum depth, chances are that lake has not frozen out. What I mean by frozen out, for those fishermen who are not from Minnesota, Wisconsin, or the UP of Michigan. On certain winters, when it gets so brutally cold, when it doesn't go above, say, 0 degrees Fahrenheit for several weeks, the ice can get so thick that it dries down the depth of the lake effectively to where there's less oxygen available for fish, and unfortunately suffocate, and you have a fish kill-off, winter kill-off. Shallow lakes are notorious for this in this area. It's part of the natural cycle of life, because then fish come back with a vengeance with bait fish and that kind of thing. But lakes that are deeper, or if they have a spring in them, typically that doesn't happen. Okay, so Delay Lake is 18 feet deep, and it's 100 acres. So that's a pretty good size. You can get some big fish on a 100-acre lake. Now, right up here is what's called the Fisheries Lake Survey. Now, the Fisheries Lake Survey is when the DNR goes out and purposely nets a fish to see what fish are resident on a lake. Very interesting. And they do this over a number of years. For example, Delay Lake was surveyed in 2016. It was surveyed 2008, 2003, 1998, 1992. Now, when you see something like that, you know that over a number of of years, this lake has been looked at and studied. Another good clue. All right, so we're going to take a look at what the state found in 2016. First thing I'll look at, obviously, is the number of northern pike that they caught. All right, I go down here to northern pike. They only caught 4 northern pike the last time they surveyed this lake. But what's very intriguing to me is this number right here. I don't know if you can see it, but right there was one fish that was from 40 to 44 inches. That's the size fish that I'm looking for, obviously. All right. Was that just a one-off thing? Well, let's go find out. Let's go to the 2008. Again, down here. All right, they caught 11 fish that day, and they caught really 9 fish that were good size. 25 to 29, that's a good size fish. And 30 to 34, they caught 3 of those. All right, so that's what that's telling me is there are some nice sized northerns. There's not a tremendous number. Quite often that's the case. You either have big fish or you have a lot of little fish, but it's hard to find a lake with both. There's some, but typically what happens is they freeze out. All right, so another thing for the walleye fishermen, look at the number of the walleyes on this lake. This is a great walleye fishery. All right, so let's go back up to 2016, July. Again, good numbers of keeper walleyes. Now, to me, a keeper walleye is 15 inches and larger. I mean, this is some pretty impressive numbers. All right, so we looked at 2016, 2013, 2016, 2008, 2003. Let's take a look at the numbers. Let's look at the numbers that they found in 2003. Look at that. Tremendous numbers of walleyes, smallmouth bass. This is just a regular fishing emporium, this lake. Again, there's very few pike. All right, so if it wasn't for that one big pike, I as a trophy northern fisherman, I may step away from this lake. But if you were a walleye fisherman, these numbers would catch my eye. All right, so now what we're going to do is look at more information about Dumbell Lake. There is verbiage down here that the technicians, when they went into this lake, wrote about this lake. And I don't know if you can see it on here. You can look it up just as I did have. And what they say is there's a very rugged, tough landing, but you can launch a small boat into it. Again, that's not quite what I'm looking for. I'm looking more for things that I have to either carry my canoe in or anything. But I tell you what, if it's a good lake and if there's a landing, it makes life easier. There are 5 cabins that apparently are leased on this lake. I happened to look at the lake on some imagery, and they're right on the south end. We'll get to that in a minute. The primary species managed is walleye. They are stocking this lake on even years. Okay, well, that makes sense. Obviously, they're not stocking the smallmouth, and they're not stocking the northern. It's interesting what they say here about the northern pike. It says here, and I quote, 4 northern pike were sampled in trap nets for a catch of 0.4 per net with an average weight of 4.7 pounds. Average weight was greatly influenced by one fish that was 40.2 inches long. All right, that's the fish I'm looking for. I want to catch that fish. Okay, so and it talks about some other things too here. All right, I want to go back. All right, so now let's say that I'm interested in fishing Dumbell Lake. I need to have more information. I don't want to see what the bottom looks like. Is it weedy? Does it have rock bars? If I'm a walleye fisherman, does it have boulders? Those are the kind of things, as a fisherman, I want to know. All right, so we're going to go back to Dumbell Lake from the map. I just popped back onto it, launched a delay again. Down here, there's under lake maps, there's lake depth maps available for this lake.
All right, and this is an incredible amount of information on this. Now, to save time, there's 2 versions of the map, both of which give a tremendous amount of information, in my opinion. All right, we're going to bring this forward. Hopefully you can see this on the map over my shoulder. All right, we're zooming in. All right, first thing, as a northern pike fisherman, vegetation. You pretty much have to have weeds, vegetation, and shallow water for the bait fish to support big northerns. All right, I take a look at this lake. It's got vegetation. Lo and behold, it has rocks as well. Now, I stumbled upon this lake. I don't want to make it look like I've been fishing this lake for a year. I haven't. I've never been on this lake. I found this. I was poking around at lunch the other day at work, and I thought this would be a good lake for me to use as an example to show how I go about doing what I'm doing. All right, so let's take a look at what else it has. It says it also has a rocky bar to the southeast corner at 2.5 feet, and then there's a hole of 6 feet. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Perks my curiosity. So we're going to go back and open up the other version of the map. All right, here's the other version. And we're going to zoom in on this. All right, this doesn't give us nearly as much information about the bottom as it does about the surrounding. One thing I want to point out is the map from the DNR, the map, the lake locator map, didn't show where the landing was. The first map we looked at didn't show where the landing was. Well, lo and behold, I'm going to zoom this in as much as I can. This tells us where the landing is, right here. Apparently there's a little outlet for a stream here, a brook. All right, that's where the landing is. And I also happen to know that there's some cabins right along here. All right, so now we know where the landing is. We know that this is the road that we would gain access to. All right, so now let's go back to interactive visitors map. Okay. I hope I'm not boring you guys to death. All right, back to Silver Bay. Highway 1. Highway 1 up to Isabella. All right, there's a lot of information on this website. All right, there's Dumbell Lake. Here's the road. It's called Walleyes Lake Road, number 172. You turn right off of Highway 1 at Isabella, and you turn east. You go just a couple miles apparently, and there's Dumbell Lake. All right, so we know where the access is. It's right here. It's, if you can see where I'm pointing. All right, I'm going to zoom in. It's limited here. Okay, so the access is right here. What else will this tell us about? Oh, one thing I want to show about this gray and white dashed line. Let's go to the legend. All right, the gray and dashed line says it's a gravel road suitable for passenger cars. Now, I would not be going up there in the wintertime with a passenger car to this lake. My guess is it's not even plowed, but it may be. But I wouldn't go up there with a passenger car. I would go up there with four-wheel drive only, and I'd be watching the forecast. If there's forecast for snow, I don't think I'd go back up in here because you don't want to get stranded and so forth. Safety first. Me as an old geezer, safety first. And we're going to go into this setup, this base map. And to me, this is probably the most helpful. You click on base map, and there's something called U.S. Geological Survey, USGS topographical map. Now, these are old maps from old-timey, and these maps are invaluable. They show what the terrain is. It shows you the contour around the lake and so forth. It shows old trails, that may or may not be in existence anymore. It will show old railroad grades that may or may not be maintained anymore. It's just a wealth of information. I dig this site to no end because of this very thing. Now I'm taking a look at this site, and I'm seeing some pretty rugged terrain. Now rugged terrain around Dumbell Lake, and so we've got a nice steep cliff on the northeast corner. But down here where the landing is, it's nice and flat. In fact, there's swamp to the south. All right. Very interesting. Okay, so there's no other trails in here except for this one going up there. You know, one thing I forgot to mention, and it's very important to me about this lake, and I'm going to break away because I'm afraid I'm going to tell you. I'm going to forget to tell you about this. But one other thing that the Minnesota website will tell you about on this is water clarity. Now, because I like to sight fish, and we looked at some sight fishing during episode 1. Sight fishing is how far you can see into the water typically. Now, in 2016, the water clarity for this lake was 10 feet. Now, that's not gin clear, but it's also 10 feet, and you can see to the bottom of 10 feet. Typically, I don't sight fish with less than 7 or 8. So that tells me I can sight fish with this. But it also tells me something else. Walleyes, as a rule, do not thrive in ultra clear water. So I'm not surprised by 10-foot clarity. Apparently, they've got enough cover with a little bit of cloudiness. It's not gin clear to where that they can thrive in that water. And it also, down here a little further, I forgot to mention, it talks about the water being, let's see, the lake has an area of 102 acres with maximum depth 18 feet and is fairly clear water with a slight green tint. I love to fish water with a slight green tint. It's just cool, and I don't know why. Of course, you're not going to know that in the wintertime, but in the summer, being out on the canoe on a green tinted lake, it's cool. I'll just put it that way. All right. So now back to the U.S. Geological Survey maps. Okay, so we've got this open here, and we now know that there doesn't appear to be any other trails. Down here, we can see where the buildings were, the houses or whatnot, cabins that are on the lake. Another thing I want to look at, and that's the imagery. Now, this is very interesting. We're going to go to imagery. Now, the imagery for this site is a lot different than Google Earth. And I'm not sure why. I don't know where the USGS gets their imagery. I have no idea. But if you take a look at it, there is a trail. Right, here's the trail we discussed either to the northwest. But there is definitely a trail up here to the west of the lake. And also notice that this has been logged off. All right, so they've done some logging. All right, for us, that's a moot point because we can get at this lake here. But let's say we can't get at this lake. This would tell us that this was logged sometime in the past. And chances are there's a trail that goes very close to this lake. You're not allowed to log all the way up next to a lake, but there's a certain buffer that you have to leave. So chances are there's going to be a drag point for logs relatively close to that lake. That's where Google Earth comes in. And we're going to go back here. We're going to launch Google Earth Pro. All right, starting location at New Life Community Church. Okay. Now what I've got tagged here, I'm going to back out, is I'm going to go up to Silver Bay. And I've got tagged Dumbell Lake. All right, and we're going to go to our lake. There it is. And under Google Earth Pro, you can really see the logging that took place. Well, just for curiosity, when did they log that? And there's a reason we may want to know that, because it'll tell us how old some of these logging trails are. So there's a button up here called Historical Imagery. Click on that. All right, this tells us that this was dated 2013. This particular map. All right, the image before then was 2013, 2011. All right, we're going back in time now. There's 2011. There's 2009. You can really see it's cleared out. 2009, 2008, 2003. If you'll notice, it's not been logged. And so sometime between 2003 and 2008, this was logged off. Kind of fun to know. One thing I would point out is, again, we're going to have no problem getting to Dumbell Lake, obviously, but if we couldn't, this logging goes right up to the edge right here. There's a trail, a logging trail, that goes up here that would make pulling our cart much easier. And my guess is guys are running that trail because if you go to 2013, that's a heavily used trail. My guess is guys are running their four-wheelers or side-by-sides up here. I'm sure they are. But the bottom line of it is, legally, you have a trail all the way up to the edge of this lake. Okay, so that's another tool in your toolbox to help you get into a lake.
It's a big male.
There we go.
First one of the year.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, Jay's got something nice on. We don't know what it is yet. He's concerned that it's a sturgeon.
This is a walleye. She's
Get your beast.
a wall one. This is a sturgeon.
Are you gaining ground?
Very little. I think I am.
Look at the rod bend. There it is, a nice walleye.
That is a walleye. Holy smokes.
Let's net that.
Holy 9 ounces. Bigger than that.
Ah, nice. We'll measure it and take some pictures. Hold it out for the tail's twisting around. Moly. All right, you're on video.
Okay, I'm gonna let her go.
Yep.
I'm gonna fall in and get all wet. Watch, sweetie pie.
29-inch fish. Oh, don't go under the ice. Stay out here, darling. There she is. She's all right. Okay, it is now 9:45, first fish of the day.
And that is a beast. There she is. I haven't measured her yet. Got another nice one on. See how big this one is. Haven't seen it yet. That's staying on the bottom. Yeah, this is a nice fish too. Oof. Oof. This might be. This is a dandy fish. Still haven't seen it. Oh yeah. I'm gonna set this down here in a second and get her landed. Another nice fish. Smack that plastic. It's not quite as big as the other one, but it's a dandy.
Well, I hope you found these 2 episodes about how to find that obscure adventure lake interesting. I hope you can apply that to your fishing, and maybe we'll even see you out there on one of these lakes. If you happen to see me, please come up and say hello. I'd love to meet you. I really don't have anything more to say. So I'll see you out on the water.